Hello and welcome, Arithix here, and this week we're going to be taking a look at the other MOC that I built over the Christmas break, which is Bob's office headquarters. So it's going to be the base of the skyscraper that goes into Bob's office. So without any further ado, we'll just jump straight in. So for those of you who have been following my channel for a while, you might be aware of Bob. But for those of you who aren't, I'll give you a brief rundown. Bob is the sort of original minifigure. Now I know he wasn't the first released, but in this sort of lore, he is the prototype minifigure. He was the first made sort of as a proof of concept, and came to the world first. He then decided, got sort of like a inspiration to build, and started building lots of buildings, and sort of became sort of the architect, and got a lot of power through various means. Again, if anybody wants a breakdown of Bob's story, I'm happy to do so, but it's not super important to do a detailed breakdown. Bob just gained power, built up the Lego universe, all of the original themes, from castle to space. He conquered it all, and started opening up rifts in time and space to bring in Marvel and Ninjago and all of these other themes that exist outside of the Lego universe. For those of you who played Lego games as a kid, it's sort of that sort of feel, like all of the Lego themes from like the 80s and 90s, they all sort of felt like they happened in the same universe, like they did in some of the games like Lego Island, Lego Racers, etc. So there's Bob here in the middle, there's Steve, his chief wizard and ultimate power, and then Bill the butler. But I built him a headquarters. I did build Bob an office a long time ago, which I will just grab. It's just behind. Oh no, it's further away. I'll go grab it in a second. But so this is the sort of new base of operations for Bob. Bob stands for Bob's Ordinary Bricks. It's his sort of public persona. Nobody knows that he's an evil mastermind. He is just the owner of a very large company that provides basic bricks like 2x4s to the world for construction purposes. And this is going to be the base of that, and the office will go on the top. So this is the first floor. So I've got some double doors out the front. I can't remember where I've liberated these from, but they are just pieces that I had. These red pieces, if you can't tell already, come from the spares that I had from my second Daily Bugle, to spell out Bob on the front of the building. I tried to give it a little bit of depth, so it does have sort of multiple layers. It goes in and out. From my days of playing Minecraft and just lots of years building Lego, the more depth you can give to the face of a building, so it's not just a flat wall, the better it's going to look. All of the Lego buildings follow this sort of rule, so you can see, the Daily Bugle's got sort of like a very textured front. There's lots of sort of layers to it. It goes in and goes out. You've got the bars that come out a bit further than the windows, and the Marvel Tower does a similar thing. So does the Sanctum Sanctorum. So I'm sort of using that same build concept that, buildings aren't usually completely flat, and they look pretty boring when they are. So that's the front. Looks pretty nice. On the side, I've tried to give it a little bit less because you won't see it as much. It's not the front of the building. It's not doesn't need to be as glamorous, but I've still given it, a little bit of depth with some snot-mounted plate here on the side and here for some tiles. On No, they are on snot pieces. And then just different colours of the dark grey and black. Now you probably already noticed that there are some variations between the dark grey on this building. So here at the front you can see most of these are dark bluish grey, and these are the old dark grey. Now it makes sense because Bob has been around since the dawn of time, so the pieces that he would have access to date back to the old grey. So I decided not to limit myself on just using dark bluish grey, and to use dark grey as well, as it would sort of make sense. And with these old blue windows, I've ordered more of these so that I can continue building up. But yeah, so that's the side of the building of some of these great pieces to give it a little bit more interesting. I'm thinking about going back in here and putting a bracket and then just putting an extra piece in there or something, to build it up, or just maybe move these over so that it doesn't break the line. On the back here we have some sort of scaffolding framing. We've got some extra bits here sort of to indicate sort of support, structural support. And I do think I might add a couple of extra pieces here. Then we've got some sort of electrical pipelines here. The air conditioning unit, sort of stolen from the Daily Bugle, but and then some pipes feeding that. And then the other side here is got the emergency exit, again stolen from the Daily Bugle because I had a spare. And then you've got some power cables, probably I'm going to say to keep this locked because this building is very it has a lot of sensitive information and technology, so Bob is going to, of course, protect his assets very seriously. So then we move on to the inside. You can see I've used a TV again from the Daily Bugle, lots of handy pieces spare from the second Daily Bugle that have been utilised for this build. We have our waiting area. We have this minifigure who I actually picked up from the Lego store in a build your minifigure. My girlfriend bought a box where she got 2 minifigures and she said, why don't you build the third one? So I couldn't find any pieces that matched. Surprisingly enough, you get this space torso piece here, but there's no actual space torso pieces or legs or space helmets or anything like that. And all of these other, so I decided let's collect a bunch of random pieces and then maybe I can use them for different minifigures to make some custom ones. But I actually kind of like him. He's just sort of a confusing monument to, like, maybe he got caught up in the paradoxes of all the themes coming together and he's just had all of them happen to him in a sort of mismatch. But yeah, I do kind of like him now, so I think I might keep him. But he's come into the waiting area. We have some chairs here, a bin for throwing away rubbish. On this side, the waiting area has a table with some newspapers, mainly the Daily Bugle. Lots of spares from that, and a coffee mug. We have some decorations on the wall. So this is a 2x4. This is framed as the first brick Bob ever manufactured in one of his factories. He didn't necessarily build it from scratch, but he would have mined, if you will, a 2x4 brick out of the ground. It would have been a brown or a white or a grey, and then he colours them. Is one of the things that Bob's Ordinary Bricks does. He cuts them up into smaller pieces, so a 2x4 into 2x2s, for example, and he colours them from the earth colours they will probably be when you mine them out of the floor into the colours that are used a lot around the world, especially Ninjago uses a lot of colour. On this side of the wall, we have the stained glass window piece from one of the old Lego castle sets. Not one of the sort of classic ones, but the 90s, early 2000s castles that I had when I was a kid. I thought that would make a nice framed piece. Had to do some funky snot stuff on the back to get it to work, but there we go, it's in there. We have one of the Ghostbusters in here. He was just sort of my test minifigure to sort of see if it didn't look too cramped on this gate to tap your way in. So if you have an ID, you can tap your way in. We've got reception here with, again, some computer screens from the Daily Bugle. And I got one old school keyboard and one of the newer keyboards, and then some coffee mugs as well. And then we have our lift here. Now, there's a couple of different ways of doing lifts. Some people build working lifts. Some people, in the Marvel sets, they just build sort of fake facade lifts, which is kind of popular. It's because it gives you a lot more space. You don't have to dedicate as much space to a lift. There's a couple of specks of stuff I need to get out of there, fallen in. But I decided I like the idea of having a lift because there are scenes that you can create with lifts, things that happen, Captain America fighting off a bunch of guys in a lift, and things like that. So I built a lift that's not necessarily meant to be functional to go up and down, but you could have scenes of people boarding and getting off or having things happen inside the lift. So that's the thinking there, and then there'll be a breakaway wall that you can pull off so that I can access the minifigures in there. But you can see, you can look through here and see down the hall into the lift and the reception area. And so yeah, that is the first floor of Bob's building. So let me just quickly grab Bob's office, and I'll show you sort of the general plan for the rest of the building. Right, so this is Bob's office. This was a MOC that I built a few years ago. I think I've showed it off in a previous video, but just as a recap, we've got some greebling details on the side, Lego Adventures collections, and his wall of heads of defeated enemies. Now, of course, this is Lego, so they're not dead per se. They are alive. They are still functioning. They still talk. and offer their opinions even when not wanted, until Bob gives them a look and they'll shush. But they are still alive and they can still be put back together. It's Lego. It's nothing too gory, you know what I mean? Like they can't do anything because they're just a head, but they're not, you know, dead or anything. They can be brought back. In fact, the three there, Captain Redbeard, Sam Sinister, and Basil the Batlord, are actually brought back once a year for the Lego Racers Championship race. And they're put onto sort of like little temporary bodies so they can drive their cars but can't escape. Bob's army of smiley-faced men, and his desk. This will have to be reworked because, as you can see, it's a lot bigger than the base of Bob's new tower, so it will have to be a little bit smaller. But I am planning to keep the desk the way it is. So the next floor on this will probably be some sort of manufacturing factory floor type thing, with some conveyor belts and some bricks going along. Above that, I'm going to give Dr. Cyber, I think his name is, here his time lab, for where he experiments with time and has all the time machines and things. And then floors for above that, I want to have a hangar for the Blacktron. What is it called? The Cruiser, Blacktron Cruiser, the small one that was a GWP, but you can also buy it as a set. I'm going to have a hangar for that, where the door opens and it can fly out. Then you have Bob's office and Bob's penthouse where he lives. So yeah, that's going to be Bob's HQ. It will go eventually next to the Avengers Tower. Once the Avengers Tower has its base, it'll be wider, and then I'll have to move the Sanctum, and then Bob's Tower will go there. But for now, this is the first floor. So what do you think? This is my first sort of original building. I have built MOCs before, but and most of the buildings that I've built in the past have been Star Wars bases or just random sci-fi bases that include everything, but you know, just very old school classic clone-based style buildings. So this is my first sort of modular building original. So yeah, tell me your thoughts. What do you think? Do you have any suggestions for things that I could include in the floors? Do you want to hear Bob's story or not? I don't. It'd be interesting to see if there is any interest in that. But yeah, thanks you for watching, and please subscribe to keep up to date with all of the things that are happening in the Lego City. Drop me a like if you have enjoyed this video or you like this MOC, because it really does help me out. And for now, stay cool, keep building, and I'll see you next time.